As we look at Warsaw, Poland live, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau wrapped up his week-long European tour there earlier this morning. He met with NATO leaders, the leaders of 4 different countries, to talk about the international response to Russia's invasion. And then he spoke to reporters who were covering his trip a little bit earlier this morning. Let's listen to some of what he said.
On this trip, yes, it's been about solidarity and alignment amongst leaders across Europe and indeed around the world. But more than that, it's about concrete supports, whether it's strengthening and renewing our commitment to NATO through the Operation Reassurance, as we announced on Tuesday, whether it's bringing forward more concrete sanctions aligned with our allies, whether it's stepping up here in Poland on humanitarian support, support for refugees, whether it's bringing home the reality of what Europe is facing to Canadians through support and excellent reporting by Canadian media. This trip has continued to deepen Canada's conviction and commitment to standing up for democracy and the values that underpin everything that we believe in.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Warsaw, Poland. Travis Danraj has been covering the tour.
After 5 days of diplomacy, face-to-face meetings with world leaders, and seeing the humanitarian crisis up close, Justin Trudeau heads home today and believes this trip has demonstrated solidarity and substance. The Prime Minister announced new sanctions against 5 former Russian senior officials and associates of the regime today. He says all have been complicit in the invasion. They include a notable name who until now has evaded consequences, Roman Abramovich, whose assets have been frozen.
The sanctions on Russian officials and oligarchs like Abramovich are directed at them, so that they cannot profit or benefit from economic activities in Canada or the hard work of Canadians working in companies that they have investments in. I believe Abramovich owns shares that are worth a little less than 30% of Evraz.
On the millions trying to flee the war zone, Trudeau spoke with refugees in Warsaw yesterday. He says Canada is stepping up and is not ruling out potential airlifts.
Canadians want to be there for Ukrainians, and we will be there for them. We've accelerated the immigration and refugee processes. We've made sure that there are extra resources available, but we will also look at doing more.
After attacks by Russian forces on multiple hospitals and the increasing threat of a chemical or nuclear attack, the Prime Minister says diplomatic channels remain open to the Kremlin, even as questions persist about Putin's mental state and if he is a rational actor.
I've had a number of conversations with Prime Minister Bennett of Israel, who is directly engaged. Last week I spoke with President Erdogan just before his conversations with Vladimir Putin. We spoke at length, the Chancellor of Germany and I, about his interactions with Putin. We will continue to work together to coordinate the clear messages to Putin that he is unable to win this war.
This week's show of unity and increasing sanctions that have pushed the Russian economy to the brink will continue to be the West strategy moving forward.
Our continued determination, not just to stand together as allied nations and friends of Ukraine, but our determination to hold in our defense of democracy for as long as it takes with these sanctions, with these penalties for Russia, because this isn't just about Ukraine, although of course it is about Ukraine. It's also about demonstrating that you cannot violate fundamental principles of the international order, like territorial integrity or sovereignty of a neighboring country, and expect to get away with it. This is a moment for all of us to stand up for our values and what we believe in, That is exactly what we're doing.
Trudeau says at this point there is no win for Putin, and as pressure increases, the war rages on, the deaths mount. Potential off-ramps for a climb down from the Kremlin hard to see on the horizon. Travis Stanrash, CBC News, Warsaw.